Up next, we have talked a lot about ourselves, and now we're going to the pets in our life. So if you were listening to our Bliss Probiotic session, you might want to tune back in for that little doggy that was there as well. We have Chantel and Claire, who are from Royal Canin. Chantel is a veterinarian and Claire is our digital marketing executive at Royal Canin ANZ. And the guys are going to take us through something that's really important, which is how to keep our pets happy and healthy at home.
And I think we've got a very, very easy competition going with this one, which I think you can all, well, probably not all of you, but everyone who has a pet at home, just post a pic. We want to see your pets.
Tell us why you think they're the cutest. We all think our own pets are the cutest, so get it on there. Okay, over to you girls.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for inviting us today. We're really, really thrilled to be here. This is Dr. Chantel and myself, Claire from Royal Canin. Today we wanted to talk about the emotional well-being of pets at home. If you already have a pet at home or planning to get one soon, this session is definitely for you. And I have brought our expert here, Chantel, who is one of our Royal Canin vets with a passion in behavior and the human-pet relationship. You will have the opportunity to ask all your questions at the end of the sessions, and I'll go through Q&A as we go. But really, Chantel, I just wanted to start by asking you a question. How did you end up so passionate about this topic?
Thanks, Claire. I think that's a great question. Before we get to sort of the advice part, I'd like to acknowledge how easy it is for us to feel immense pressure to be perfect pet parents. Anyone listening that might be worried about what you've been doing wrong, let's quickly talk about that feeling. Some of my absolute favourite veterinary behaviourists and trainers talk about how grateful they are to have changed their approach since their journey began. So my passion for behaviour stemmed as a result of learning about my own frustrations and conflict with one of my very beautiful cats, Louie. And there's a ton of things that I wish I'd done differently, but I wouldn't change how much it's taught me. And for that, I'm so grateful. So I just want to congratulate and encourage all of our listeners for being here and opening their hearts and minds to being able to learn and improve the emotional well-being of their pets. And I think perhaps, hopefully that you'll take away from our discussion points today a sense of improving upon a very special foundation that you guys have with your pets. More so that feeling than anything less positive. So.
Absolutely. It is a very special thing indeed, with so many of us now encouraged to work and study at home. Our pets are being forced to live with a new normal, but it also has afforded us the opportunity to observe them closer, which is great. For the extroverted and engaged pets, this might be like a golden age. This might be great. But for the more reserved and introverted cats and dogs, it might feel closer to a nightmare. So could you tell us how this new normal has affected our pets and what consequences this had on our pets as well?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's really great to try and put ourselves in our pet's shoes. So from the pet's perspective, there have been pros and cons to their humans working from home. Nonetheless, it has been a disruption to their routines and it has required some adaptation for them. Whilst this has provided pet owners with the opportunity to connect more with their pets and interact more frequently, it's helpful to recognise that there might have been less of an opportunity for rest and downtime for our pets, as maybe they'd normally be taking advantage of regular opportunities to rest and relax in peace and quiet while we used to vacate the house for work and play. On an important note, that even though there are broad differences between dog and cat behaviour, that not rules apply to all dogs and not all rules apply to all cats, and that's where pets and people are exactly the same, that we're all unique and different. So knowing your pet's personality and preferences and tendencies will give everybody the best background to this conversation that we're having today. So for example, some cats are adventurers and thrive on stimulation and variety, and others are more introverted and very particular about their structure and routine and familiarity. So each personality will respond differently to all of this unexpected company. there's a lot of variation between dogs as well, and not all dogs will be so keen to go on many extra walks and attention, and that's okay too. So while some have thrived with the extra attention and interaction, all of them will need time to adapt in the forward and opposite direction as well. Some might face separation distress when restrictions start to ease and the family returns to work or school, and some will be like, great, I get the house back to myself. So
yeah. Yeah, there's different, causes of stress, and that's really interesting actually. Can you tell us what are some other causes of stress that pet owners might find?
Yeah, I think stress in general can stem from changes in routine and creation of insecurity, especially if we ourselves, as the pet owners and caregivers, are trying to find ways of coping with uncertainty, especially this year with all of the unique challenges that we've been facing as humans. And insecurity and stress within ourselves can make us a little less reliable for our pets to rely on, and that's what it is to be human, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just kind to acknowledge it. And then during times of insecurity and stress, pets can start to exhibit behaviour problems, but I prefer to refer to them as maladaptive coping behaviours rather than behaviour problem. Brings quite some negativity to it, and that can be a bit of a barrier to figuring out what the problem is and then ultimately helping our pets. On the topic of, I guess, human perceived antisocial behaviour, another thing I wish that I'd practiced years ago is rewarding and actively engaging and interacting with my pets while they're calm and resting, rather than stimulating them all the time. Quietly and calmly acknowledging when a pet is behaving appropriately is quite important, and then it gives us the opportunity to be not only focusing on antisocial behaviour, and that's much more pleasant for everyone involved. So the more pets know when they're getting it right, the easier it is to calmly communicate when they're not, by just simple disengagement instead of frustration.
Yeah.
For both parties to be sharing in relaxation creates those special moments that we have pets for, and helps provide contrast in those experiences. And yeah, so I mean, it's easy to think about separation distress because we anticipate it as people, but if we're sort of more mindful about our pets' body language and behaviours on a much more all the time type scale, then we'll be much more better positioned to identify non-positive emotions in our pets, and then we as pet owners aren't caught off guard, and we're able to respond and support them when we're least expecting it.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point actually. And once a lot of pets return back to work, that's going to be quite a big change for a lot of our pets. It's really important to keep that in mind actually, and prepare them for that change. How can we recognize stress and anxiety with our pets?
A lot of it comes down to body language, Claire. Dogs can be a bit easier to read for people because their body language mimics ours in a bit more of a closer analogy. But dogs might pant, tense their eyebrows, they might avoid eye contact or turn their head. There's this condition or display called whale eye, and that's where they show the whites of their eyes, and it can commonly happen when they're turning their head but then still trying to keep a gauge on the situation, or they're keeping their face on but they're averting their eyes. And so when you start to see the whites of dogs' eyes, that's usually a sign of distress or discomfort. Pacing, fidgeting, and just an inability to just relax is one big cue that they might be experiencing stress or anxiety. Cats can be a little harder to read, but practice makes perfect. So ear position, body and tail posture, whisker and facial tension can give some pretty clear indicators if you know what to look for. And I'd encourage any cat owner out there to have a look at, there's heaps of free resources and downloads and videos at icatcare.org, and that goes through some basics of cat behaviour and learning how to read your cat. But ultimately, I'd have to say kind of prevention's better than a cure. It'd be great if we're able to set our houses up so that our cats and dogs don't really get to a stressed stage, so that we can sort of keep them comfortable and happy, but then we know what to look for and how to respond to that when they are less than comfortable.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. That's a great advice. And what advice do you have here for our community to avoid anxiety around adaptation? Any specific tips there?
Yeah. Again, while we're talking about pets, it is a relationship, and so it's really important that we do acknowledge the role that humans have to play in this scenario. And first and foremost, I would say my number one advice point is take care and be kind to yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Our pets are influenced by our moods, and they can tell when we're stressed.
Mm-hmm.
So the first step to supporting our pets and looking after them is looking after our own emotional well-being. So if you're feeling a little bit out of your depth when it comes to your pet's behaviour or anything like that, definitely reach out to your veterinarian or a positively reinforcing behaviour trainer or behaviour specialist. There's a lot of support out there if you feel like things are building up a little bit. But moving on from that, keeping in mind that pets again aren't too dissimilar to us in that they have a limited emotional capacity. So keep in mind what else might be filling up their emotional bucket, such as illness or overwhelming circumstances. A great example is cats are heavily influenced both medically and psychologically by their toileting arrangements. Oh, yeah. And it's really an important baseline for them as to how much emotional flexibility they have left to deal with stress is their toileting setup. So things like, low access areas for litter trays, keeping them as clean as possible, especially if you've got more than one cat, the number of litter trays, sense of smell, so trying to avoid harsh cleaning products and sticking to the same sort of litter substrate and everything like that. If you're able to help support that really key area and resource for the cat, then they've got more ability to deal with changes in other parts of their lives.
Yeah.
As an example.
That's great. And like recently I actually learned that having different litter trays when you have different cats is very important, for instance, and that could help with that stress management. So that's a really great tip. Thank you. And do you have any other specific examples or tips? Because you had some great examples here.
Yeah, sure. I'd talk for 5 hours if I could. So routine not only benefits us, but it benefits our pets as well. So trying to stick to a similar routine for your workday while you're at home will help minimise the impact and influence of the changes of either working from home or returning to work. Same with exercise. Try to keep your pet active. Taking your dog or cat for a walk if the cat's an extroverted personality type. An adventurer. It's a great way to break up your workday while working from home, whilst physical distancing as well. So making sure you wash your hands before and after. We always want to recommend safe practices. But also fun indoor games and things like that to play with your dog or cat can be a really great way of helping boost their stimulation and get some endorphins pumping. It works the exact same way in pets as in people when it comes to brain health and exercise that's positive and health associated.
Yep.
If you've been working from home and then you're planning on going back, or with the school term restarting and things like that, try to slow the changes as much as practical, as much as within your control. If the house has been occupied and then will become vacant for long periods of time, slowly build up the duration of absence before you return to the office full time. So that starts while you're still at home, and sometimes I guess there's probably more flexibility in pushing out that duration of absence, say on weekends and things like that, where safe to do so.
Okay.
And my final sort of key tip in general is using and taking advantage of dogs and cats' sense of smell. Their scent is much more important to them than we realise, because our sense of smell is so diminished compared to dogs and cats. So nose work has been associated with anxiety relief and requires very little preparation from us. So for example, allowing your dog to sniff while out on walks will make a huge difference to the well-being and their enjoyment of the walk. So try to think of walks about not just the exercise, but about the sniffs as well. And then for cats, for example, if your cat's entirely indoors, you can try leaving, say, a 1 centimetre gap in the window, weather and house security permitting.
Yeah.
And that can provide them a lot more enrichment for the day than you might think.
Yeah, okay, really interesting. You know, I didn't know that about the scent, so I'm sure a lot of people here would be really excited to learn that. I was actually thinking that, you know, you will have a lot of people that are actually working long hours at home and don't have that much time to go out. So what are some ways to engage with exercise with our pets if we're spending more time inside? What would be your recommendation here?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of indoor stimulation and exercise because I'm a bit of a cold freak. I don't like to go outside in winter. I'm a bit of a sook like that. So a great way to really engage with your pets and take advantage of their sense of smell and things like that is to use meal times as an activity.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to set up for, you know, whether you are present in the house or whether you're absent from the house, is some sort of food puzzle or enrichment toys, hiding kibble around the house if it's okay that all pets have access to whichever areas, and getting them to sniff things out. For example, my youngest cat, she actually doesn't have a food bowl. We feed her exclusively through puzzles, toys, and under supervision some mice, some toy feeding mice that she has to bat around to get the kibble out of. Yeah, and we have a multi-cat household, and we have a couple of special needs cats as well, typical vet. So it's important that only who's supposed to get the food gets it. But yeah, it's something that can really help get them to display their natural behaviours, and that helps with stress management and things like that. And you don't have to spend a cent either. There's heaps of creative ideas on food puzzles, like repurposing a toilet roll and some tissue paper or something, and you've not spent any money, and they get to destroy something that you don't care about, and everyone's happy.
Yeah.
The other thing too is that a lot of behaviour problems can actually sometimes be the start of something medical. So it's really important that if you do notice a shift in behaviour, that you are in touch with your local veterinarian, so that you know that your pet is in the best health that they can be, because physical health is also the cornerstone of mental well-being. And just like us, if they have any physical discomfort or pain, that can negatively impact their mental health. You know, the adage, you are what you eat, as well, can really heavily influence pet mental health. So making sure that they're on a really good quality diet, that if they have any specific nutritional sort of sensitivities, or if they need nutritional support for any medical conditions, that your vet, who knows your pet's medical history best, is having a chat with you about what they're eating and how they can be on the best nutritional plan possible.
Great. Oh, great advice. Thank you so much. What about, I was actually thinking that some people or pet owners might not go back to work or to the office right away. So what about pet owners that might be working from home for the rest of the year? Do you have any last advice for them?
Yeah, for sure. I think that just making sure that your pet has the opportunity to rest, that they've got a space to retreat to if they feel overwhelmed. And it's really important that other pets and children can't bother them there in that place, that each pet needs their own little sanctuary to retreat to if they feel overwhelmed. Great advice for cats is elevated spaces. It's in their nature to want to get up high and feel safe that way. So perhaps a strategically cleared bookshelf or something like that can again be a cost-free way of helping create extra space within your home for that. And the other element to that is mobility for both dogs and cats, considering how they get to and from that place of retreat. You know, do they need maybe an extra set of stairs or a strategically placed chair so that they're not having to try and make the space all in one hit. Especially during this colder weather where the cold snap can really make arthritis flare up in our older pets. Routine and structure, I've mentioned it before, but I'll highlight that again. Routine, structure and exercise is sort of the cornerstone for all of that. So trying to interact predictably with anxious pets by saying hello and a pattern of how you solicit interaction with them. And last but not least, but can be hard, but try not to overfeed your pets. Sometimes they come running up to us and we might presume that they want feeding, but sometimes they actually just want interaction. And so maybe, pick up a toy and try to play with them instead, or give them a pad, or maybe a little bit of a massage or something like that, instead of just automatically going for a treat or some kibble.
Yeah. Great.
And that helps keep them from, obesity and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's another kettle of fish.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, that was a lot of great information. Thank you so much. We have some questions that came up on the chat. We also had some questions for our own community that we could discuss as well. Before we jump on the live ones, one question that comes up quite often is, I have kids at home, my pets are at home. How can I, help them and reduce anxiety by maybe, if you have any recommendation to maybe put them in a different room, or any tips like that would be really helpful, I think, for those bigger families.
Yeah. I mean, speaking from personal experience, I grew up with dogs and cats and a menagerie of other pets, as you do in rural Victoria. But I think that having a pet growing up is just an absolutely valuable and wonderful experience, and it would be great for the families, where appropriate, if possible, that they get to experience that. But as great and as many benefits as there are for the people, we also can keep the well-being in mind of the pet themselves too, and make sure that that their well-being is being taken care of. And especially when it comes to kids, they can maybe lack the skills to read those body language behaviours, and if the pet is sort of starting to get to their limit of an interaction, kids might not necessarily pick up on those cues. And we know that the highest incidence of dog bites and cat scratches actually come from familiar pets within the home. So it's actually about child safety as well that we're having this conversation. And it's so important to make sure that pets have the freedom to withdraw from an interaction that is going to stop them from resorting to antisocial behaviour such as biting or scratching. So making sure that they can go into a safe place, and trying to reinforce with the kids that it's really important that we leave them be to rest in that area, and particularly if they're sick, unwell or in pain.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. We have a lot more questions that came through while we were responding to the previous one. And I can see here one, what things can I do to keep them calm and happy when I'm not at home? And I was thinking of the cats, that are staying alone at home, indoor cats, because, we have a lot here in Australia and New Zealand as well. What would you recommend? So there's few little games that we could, discuss for the community. So, and I know and you mentioned that before, exercise is great. So few little games that they can play by themselves while the owner is away. What would you recommend?
Yeah. Well, the average healthy cat, young healthy cat, can sleep on average up to 18 hours a day. So if we're actively interacting with them in a meaningful way when we are around, then it will be less of an impact and less of a negative impact to their well-being when we're not around, and provide that opportunity for rest and recuperation, so that they can have their distance when we're not there. So, for example, I do hear from time to time that, my cat doesn't like to play, or my cat's too old to play. And again, from personal experience, my 17-year-old cat, who's actually on chemo for lymphoma, he started playing for the first time regularly last year when we moved house and rearranged our setup, and he felt that he had enough space, security and support to start batting a mouse around. And he only started doing that when he was 16 years old, which is, you know, pretty remarkable. So cats of all ages can play, so long as you know how to sort of engage with them and work towards their preferences. So games that mimic stalking and hunting, so long as it's that they're sticking with the toys and maybe not hands or fingers. Don't let them play with your hands and fingers for safety. And working within their prey preferences, such as you know, textures like feathers or fluff or string-like toys, or you know, and what kind of noise that makes. Some prefer a crinkle, some prefer a rattle. And yeah, trying to work with that so that it's not just high energy and young cats that we're thinking about getting to play, but you know, with the right toy and lure sort of behavior. Sometimes if you just you know, you wiggle the toy and then let it stop and then keep going, that can be really stimulating for the cat when there's no movement, but don't stop.
It was stimulating for me right now, so
oh, I'm glad I'm keeping you entertained, Claire. There's a bit of a kitty in everyone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I think we have a few more minutes to answer one or two questions. And so we had a question here, which was quite funny, from Amy. How much is too much sniffing when on walks with dogs? Which I thought was quite cute. I don't think there is too much sniffing, but Chantal, maybe.
I mean, walks have to work for everyone, right? You know, it's as selfless as we can be with our pets, you know, we've got things that we want to be getting out of that walking experience as well. I think that letting your dog sniff towards the start of the walk and anticipating a very slow and start to the walk is probably going to result in the least frustration for yourself. And, you know, when you're wanting to get going with some momentum on your walk. The other point to be thinking about is that there may be a particular place on your regular walk route where lots of dogs may be stopping to sniff and scent mark and things like that. And so if your dog shows keen interest in one particular location, or one or two or three particular locations throughout a routine walk route, then planning to stop there is also going to be really beneficial, because sometimes they have sort of like, you know, talking posts or notice boards, and there's just one tree on a street that every dog stops at, and really they're communicating with other dogs in the neighborhood. It's a very low risk, very positive way for dogs to be communicating and interacting, and you don't have to rely on you know, control of behavior in that other dog if you're letting them sniff, because that takes the presence of the dog out of that equation. Yeah.
Amy says thank you, so great answer.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. I think that's it for today. It is the end of our session, but feel free to come and visit the Royal Canin website if you have any questions, or if you want to learn more about this topic. A big thank you to Social Soup for inviting us as well, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you, Chantal.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys so much. What an amazing session. We had lots of questions and lots of discussion. Even some people in the chat saying even though they didn't have pets, they still found it really interesting. So we really appreciate it. One thing I did want to mention is that Royal Canin are actually specialists in dog and cat food products. And so make sure if you do have a dog or cat, please check out the Royal Canin website. Not only do they have different products for different stages, they have for different breeds, for different conditions. So if you found what Chantal was talking about really interesting, imagine the science that goes into those products. So please do check it out.
Thank you. And as we predicted, Facebook has really blown up over your pictures of your pets. I think it is genuinely the battle of dogs and cats. If we count it up, I think they're fairly equal at the moment. So if you want to get behind, you know, being a cat or a dog person. So let's just call out a few here. We've got Glennis, we've got Rosie in the sinks, getting quite a lot of engagement at the moment. Actually, all the ones at the top are cats at the moment, getting the engagement. So come on, everyone. We've got some lovely ones here. We've got Kate, who's got Oscar here. He came into our lives when we were grieving and made us laugh and smile again. He is our family's best friend. So I think that is true to all of our lovely pets, and how they really do bring a lot to our lives. So hopefully you learned something from that session. I certainly did, learning about how to connect and, you know, have happy, healthy pets from their behaviour, and also, as Katie mentioned, from the Royal Canin pet food. So over to our next session, Katie.